Hello, fellow Gatsby campers. I am excited to be here, both in the past, from the past in this recording, but also in the live chat. So if you have any questions during my talk, please hit me up in the chat. My name is Benedicte Raae. I'm a web developer from Oslo, Norway. And in this talk, I'll show you how Gatsby function adds flexibility to your site. But I'm also thinking more so to you as a developer, especially if you've been focusing solely on the front end or mostly on the front end side of things. With Gatsby functions, you can kind of stay inside of, your Gatsby develop that you've used to, but still start creating backends or, little serverless functions. And I find that it's a very easy way to get started and a fun way to get started because you don't have all of that operational overhead you would have with other serverless solutions. You might know me as the creator of POW, the encrypted menstrual cycle journal that I made using Gatsby, of course. Or you might know me as Queen Raae from our unauthorized and rum-fueled treasure hunts around the Gatsby Islands. New season coming soon. And this summer, I had a blast running Gatsby Summer Functions, a 5-week program where we tried to get comfortable and get started and comfortable using Gatsby functions. And one of the highlights came really early on in week 1 when Aremu managed to replace a paid service with his own Gatsby function. Not only did he manage to save money, he also managed to tailor the solution more to the needs of the project. If you want to check that out, head on over to Africa Challenger Brands and download the report. But enough about me and talking. I'll keep on talking, but let's get into the demo. So in today's talk, we're going to create the functions needed by Ruby's timeship. Mostly a time travel function that you can post to from this form and that we can get from in the success page. I'll show you, but we'll also create a webhook that Stripe can talk to when payments have gone through to send emails. So let me demo. The intention of the timeship is that you should guess the year the pirate princess will be 11 and what city she will be in so that you can grab her, go back to 1554 and save Princess Lisbeth from prison. That's the little backstory here. So let's guess 2025 or 2026. Let's do 2025, Oslo. And let's travel. And as you can see, it's going to cost you money. So we're traveling and it redirects us to a Stripe checkout page. We'll pay the exorbitant amount of money. When payment is approved, Stripe will redirect back to the success URL it's given you. And as you can see, you time travel to Oslo in the year 2025. Check your email to see if you found the pirate princess. So let's check our email. And yes, we have. You time traveled to Oslo in the year 2025, but you did not find the pirate princess. So now let's see how we can make this happen. So we'll head on over to our dev server instead that I haven't started running. So let's run the dev server. Okay, we got the dev server running and we can see the requests here that we made in the did ready demo. And the first one is the post. I don't know why. Oh, the time is the other way. The first one is a post to time travel with the cancel URL that Stripe should redirect to if somebody cancels, the city, the success URL that Stripe should redirect to when payment goes through, and the year that we sent in. And on that success page, we do a GET request with the Stripe session ID as a query param. So we want to replicate this. And the first thing we then, and you see both of these are the same function, but one one is a post request and the other is a GET request. So let's start by creating our time travel function. You go through to the API folder underneath source, and you create a file called time travel. So the name of this file needs to correspond to the path that you want to call. So API time travel, as you can see, API time travel. And if you've looked at kind of the Gatsby demo, they have quite a simple function that you can copy paste to just see if everything is up and running. I often like to do that, but during the summer, I've come up with my own kind of boilerplate for creating these functions, as they often need a lot more complexity than that example. Because we already know for a time travel function, we need to handle post requests and we need to handle get requests. So with post, I will defer to a new function, a separate function I called post handler, and with a get request, I will defer to another function called get handler. And if it's in neither post or get, I'll throw an error, and all errors thrown inside the post and the get, and in this else, will be caught by this block. So then I kind of have all of that error handling out of the way, and I also defer to the correct post and get handler. And both post and get and any function you want to make, it's always important to validate the information coming in, because you can never trust the information coming in. You do your thing, and then you need to respond. So in our first case, we want to do the post handler. So let's validate the information coming in. I'll begin by destructuring the data that is needed. And as we saw, the data coming in would be the city, the year, the success URL, and the cancel URL. And I like to do these in batches that make sense. And you can also be a lot more vigilant with your validation. I'm just going to check to make sure that they are there. And the same thing with the success URL and the cancel URL. So now we know that we have everything we need. We can do this thing we wanted to do. And in this case, what we want to do is to create a Stripe checkout session. And we want to get the URL to the page that will let our travelers pay for their time travel. And you can basically often copy this from the Stripe documentation, but what is noteworthy in our solution is that we are adding metadata to the session. This is not something you can do, I think, if you're just doing from the client side kind of integration with Stripe. You need to create your own serverless function or backend to handle that. So I add the year and the city, the travel data, onto the Stripe session, so that when we go to that success page and we get time travel, we can get this data. And then in the end, we respond with what is needed. And what is needed in this case is the URL that the traveler should be redirected to. And also, since we are using the Stripe SDK, we need to import that. Otherwise, it will not work. And we can see that everything keeps on rebuilding. Also, the functions we have inside our API, just making this like a very seamless experience getting started with serverless functions. Let's try to see if this works now for our on our dev. Let's travel. Oh, we have a 404, which means it doesn't exist. So maybe I was a little quick there in saying that it worked. Let's have another look. Travel. That is not the name, right? Time travel. Okay, so it's rebuilding functions. Let's try again. And we are redirected. Great. I'm going to copy this session URL so that we have that for a use case a little later on. If we cancel, you can see we are redirected back to the cancel URL. And now what we want to do is create that get function that we should be able to get. I can never write success, so we can get the time travel information on our success page. So what that takes in is that session URL that I just copied, or that session ID, I mean. We do that. It comes through as a part of the success URL coming back. So we need to grab that and we send that off to our get time travel function. So in our get time travel function, we again need to validate. So what's coming in here, it's the session ID. So first off, let's validate that we have a session ID. And if we do, we want to retrieve the session. And I'm going to put that under validate because we are now grabbing kind of the information from Stripe, so we are sure that we're getting kind of the correct data from Stripe. And then we want to make sure that we have that travel data on the session in case it's another session without any travel data. So we validate that that exists. And then something that is really important is that we need to make sure that the travel is paid for. And if you remember correctly, I just copied that session ID from before I paid. So hopefully now when we try it again, we will get payment for travel is still required. Like it doesn't want to give us any success information if the payment hasn't gone through. And then we respond. If everything is okay, we'll respond. So I don't know, do the thing. Well, maybe this is do the thing. We're getting the session, but we're doing some validation in there as well. And then we are responding with, you time travel to the city and the year, check your email, to see if this works. So let's head on over and refresh for this session. Ooh, this is not good. I don't think I paid for this session. Oh, this is the one I didn't pay for. Payment for travel is still required. Yay! But then a session I paid for earlier on, we get packaging and travel. You travel to Oslo in the year 2008. Check your email to see if you found the pirate princess. Great. But now, though, how are we going to send that email? We don't want to send that email from the front end because, people can go through here and keep on messing with the data and all of that because we are in front end land. So we want to go to, we want to create what is called a webhook. And it is basically the same thing as these API endpoints, but we call them webhooks when another system is the intended user of the endpoint. So let's create a Stripe webhook. And here again, I use a similar type of boilerplate, but for webhooks, we only need to handle post requests. Let's just start by logging out what kind of event this is. Then we want to validate that it's the correct event, and we want to grab the data off of the body. So Stripe sends in a lot of information on the body, but we cannot be sure that, this data is actually coming from Stripe. So what I'll do is then first check if this is a correct payment type or event type. And then I will grab that session from Stripe, like a fresh version of that session instead of relying on this object. I'm just using the object ID and I'm getting that session from Stripe. And I'm also saying expand the customer so we can get access to the email of the customer. Again, I want to validate that it has the city and year. And then again, I want to make sure the travel is paid for so we don't send emails to the people who haven't paid or to travelers that haven't paid. We want to make sure there is a customer object on here. And then we'll do our thing, which is to check to see if they have traveled to the correct year and the correct location, to give a different message depending on if they found the princess or not. And if all of this, goes through as intended, we'll send the message using SendGrid. And in this case, I don't want to respond with a JSON. I'll just respond with send OK because this response will go to Stripe, and all they care about is that this is a 200 response, that everything is okay. If it's not, it will retry until it gets a 200 okay. And as always, let's import our Stripe and SendGrid. And we should have a working webhook. And the way to test our webhooks is to use the Stripe CLI. So here I can say Stripe listen forward to localhost 8000 API Stripe webhook. So all the events now coming through on Stripe will be sent and forwarded to our localhost. We're heading back. We're traveling again to 2025, Oslo. Let's travel. Yes. Let's have a look to see if our time travel has worked. It's at least executed a lot of these functions. Let's check our email to see if we got another email. Yes, we did. Now I have like 3 of these in here. We got the email. So I really hope this example or demo inspired you to start playing around with Gatsby functions. As you can see, we could do all kinds of things. I mean, this could have been a game where people are allowed to send in guesses, and then you email them maybe a promo, or you can email them a coupon for your store if they guess correctly. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. And just starting to play around, you will quickly get a hang of it, because just reading about it doesn't help. You just need to start doing it. And with Gatsby function, it's simplified because you don't have to set up another service to get started with serverless functions. And if you'd like some help to get from ID to deployed Gatsby function, check out queen.raae.codes, because I will be running a workshop on just that this fall. And that's all from me. Enjoy the rest of Gatsby Camp, and I'll see you around the interwebs. Bye-bye.